Hey my friends, so now we're going to talk about how to transform your data. So we're going to start by understanding what are functions that we usually use in order to transform string values. So let's start. Okay, so now since we have a lot of string functions, I'm going to go and divide them into categories based on the purpose. So for example, we have a group of functions that's going to go and manipulate the string values. So we have concatenation, upper, lower, replace, and so on. And another group where we have only one function. It is where we can do calculations on the string values. And the last group, it is all about how to extract something from a string value. And here we have three functions: left, right, substring. So now let's go and start with the first group about the data manipulation. And the first function we have here, concat. Alright, so what is exactly concat or concatenation? It's gonna go and combine multiple string values into one value. So if you have multiple things, you can put everything in one value. So let's have a very simple example. Okay, so now let's say that you have one value called Michael. So here you have a first name, and you have totally separated value for the last name, another column where you have a value like Scott. And now you say, you know what, it makes no sense to have the first name separated from the last name. I would like to go and combine them in one value. So you can go and use the concat in order to combine those two values or multiple values into one single value like Michael Scott.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
So it is nicer to see the full name in one value instead of having like two columns for that. So that's it. This is why we need the concatenations. Now let's go back to SQL in order to try that out. Okay, so now we have the following task. Show a list of customers' first names together with their country in one column. So that means we have to make a list of customers and we have to combine two columns in one. So let's start writing the query. Select. We need the first name, the country from the table customers. So first let's go and execute this. Now as you can see, we have a list of customers, but the issue here, the first name and the countries, those two informations are in different columns, but the task says they should be in one column. So now in order to combine those two things, we have to use the concatenate function. So concat. So I'm going to start with the first argument. It's going to be the first name and then the country like this. And we're going to give it a name. Let's call it like this, name country. Now let's go and execute it. Now in the output you can see we have a new column. It's called name country and we have both of the informations in one column. So we have Maria Germany, John USA, but it doesn't really look good because there is like no spacing between them. Now we can go and make some separation between them by just adding one more thing in between, like for example maybe a space. So now we are concatenating the first name together with a space, this over here, and then the country. So let's go and execute it. Now as you can see, we have nice separations between the first name and the country. And of course you can go and add different separations like maybe minus or underscore and you will get the same effects. So with that we have a list of customers where we have the first name together with the country in one column. As you can see, it's very simple. This is how you combine two columns in one. It is really nice and easy transformation. Okay, so that's all about the concatenation in SQL. Next we're going to talk about two functions, the upper and the lower. Okay, so what is upper function? It's gonna go and convert all the characters of a string to an uppercase. It's gonna make everything capitalized. And the lower function is exactly the opposite. It's gonna go and convert everything to a lowercase. So let's have a very simple example for those two functions. Okay, so now we have like three values with different cases. The first one where you have only the first character capitalized and the rest is lowercase. And then the same value but everything is lowercase. And a third one where you have everything with an uppercase. Now if you go and apply the function upper to those three values, what's gonna happen for the first value? SQL gonna go and turn it into an uppercase. So everything gonna be capitalized, not only the first character. And now for the second value, SQL gonna turn it as well to completely capitalized. So all the characters gonna change. And for the last value, it is already capitalized. So in the output, you will get the same value. So actually nothing gonna happen for that. So this is simply the uppercase. Now let's see what can happen if you use the lowercase. For the first value, only the first character gonna be changed. And then you will have everything in lowercase. The second value, it is already a lowercase value. So if you apply lowercase, nothing can happen. You will get the same value. But for the last one, everything here is capitalized. And if you apply lowercase, all the characters gonna convert to a lowercase. So my friends, this is very simple. Let's go back to SQL in order to practice that. Okay, so we have the following task and it says, transform the customer's first name to lowercase. So now as you can see, the first names here, the first character is a capital, the rest is lowercase. So now in this task, we have to convert the whole thing into lowercase. So let's go and do that. It's very simple. We're going to say lower first name, and let's go and call it low name. So that's it. Let's go and execute it. Now if we go and compare the lower name with the first name, you can see all the characters now in the lowercase. So that's it for the task. We have transformed the first name to lowercase. Alright, the next task is exactly the opposite. Transform the customer's first name to uppercase. So let's go and have a new column. We're gonna say upper, then the first name as up name. So that's it. It's very simple. Let's go and execute. Now you can see in the output we have a new column called up name, and inside it we have the first name, but now all the characters in uppercase. So this is how you convert the case to lower or to upper in SQL. Okay, so that's all about the upper and the lower. Next we're going to talk about very interesting function. It is the trim. So the trim function gonna go and remove the leading and trailing spaces in your string values. So it's gonna go and get rid of the empty spaces at the start and at the end of a string value. Let's have a very simple example. Okay, so now we're gonna have different scenarios. The first one, you can have like a value John, where you don't have any spaces, and this is the normal case. But sometimes you might have it like this, where at the start you have a leading space, you have an empty space, or sometimes we call it white space. In another scenario, the space might be at the end of the word. So here we call it trailing space, and in another scenario you might have both of them. This is really bad, where at the start you have the leading space and at the end you have the trailing space. And of course you might not have only one space, you might have multiple spaces. Depend on how long did the user press the space, right? So of course my friends, spaces are really evil and this makes no sense to have it in your data. Now what you have to do is to do data cleansing. We have to clean up this mess, and you have the best function in order to clean up the data. You have the trim. So if you apply trim for the first value, nothing gonna happen because everything is clean and we don't have any spaces. Now if you apply it for the second case where you have a leading space, if you do that, SQL gonna go and remove this space. The same thing for the trailing space. So if you have space at the end, the trim function gonna find it and clean that up, and if you have it at the start and at the end, then it's as well no problem. It's gonna go and clean that up, and as well the trim function can go and clean multiple spaces. So if you have like 5 spaces, 10 spaces at the end or at the start, the trim function gonna go and clean that up. So this is how the trim works. And now let's go back to SQL in order to find out whether we have any spaces. Okay, so now we have a very tricky and interesting task. It says find the customers whose first name contains leading or trailing spaces. So now by looking to those values, we have to find any spaces inside the customer's name. Now by just looking to these results, you will not find any white spaces because it's really hard to see, especially if it is like trailing spaces. Now we have to write query in order to detect any spaces in the names. So how we can do that? Okay, so now think about it a little bit, and I can give you a hint. You can use the function trim in order to remove any white spaces, and you have to use it inside a where clause. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna say where. So now we have to build a condition to detect any spaces. So if you are saying if the first name is not equal to itself first name after applying a trim. So after trimming the first name, if it is not equal to the first name, so that means there was spaces. So again, what is going on here? Let's go for Maria. If Maria has no nulls, if you trim this value, nothing can happen. The value gonna stay exactly like before because there is no white spaces. But if in Maria there is any space inside it, trimming the value will not be equal to the first name if it contains any spaces. So if the column is not equal to the same column after trimming it, that means there is spaces. So let's go and execute it. And now we can see in the output, we have one customer, John, where we have this situation. Now, if you don't believe me or you don't follow me here, we can have another easier check. So let's go and comment this out and let's have a look to our first names. Now we can go and calculate the length of the first name like we have done before. So length name, and let's go and execute it. Now if you can see here, Maria, we have 5 characters, but John, we have here 4 characters, but the length is 5, and that's because we have somewhere a space, and the space gonna count as a character. So here there is like something wrong, right? And you can check the others as well. Everything is matching, but only John, we have here an issue. And now in order to see this more clearly, we're gonna use 2 functions, the trim and the length. So first, let's go and trim the first name. And after trimming the values, I'm gonna calculate the length. So we are nesting together the trim and the length, and I'm gonna call it length trim name. So let's go and execute it. Now we can see the length before trimming any value, and we can see the length after trimming the values. So you can see over here that John before trimming is 5 and after trimming is 4. So we have here an issue. Now we can make things more clear, where we can go and subtract the length of the first name with the length of the first name, but first we trim the values. So here we can call it maybe a flag or something. So let's go and execute it. Now by looking to the flag, it is really easy to now to see. If we have a 0, then everything is fine. We don't have any white spaces. But if we have higher than 0, like here 1, then this is an indicator that we have a white space. Either you do it like this, where the first name is not equal the first name after trimming, or you use more complicated solution where you say where, and I'm gonna remove this from here, the length of the first name is not equal to the length after trimming. So not equal. So if you go and execute it, you will get exactly again John. So this is how we detect any empty spaces inside our data using the trim function, or maybe as well using the length. But I really prefer the first solution. It is way easier using one function. Alright, so that's all about how to remove the empty spaces using the trim. Next, we're going to talk about a very important function called replace. Now the replace function gonna go and replace a specific character. So that means we have something old and we want to replace it with something new. Let's have a very simple example to understand it. Alright, so now imagine we have a phone number where the data is splitted by a dash. Now let's say that I don't like to have the dash in my data. I would like to have slash, like any other special character. Now in order to replace the dash, we can use the function replace. So we have to specify for SQL two things: the old value, the dash, with a new value, the slash. So if you do that, in the output, SQL gonna go and remove all those dashes between the numbers, and the replacement gonna be the dash between them. So it's very simple, right? All what you are doing is replacing an old value with a new value, and that's why we call it replace. But we can use this function as well in order to remove something. Not only we replace, and you can do that by not specifying anything in the new value, like just the single quotes, and with that it's gonna be nothing, a blank. So now what's gonna happen, SQL gonna go and replace the dash with a blank. And that means I'm just removing the dashes from the output. So if you do it, you will remove the dash and you will get only numbers. So if the replacement gonna be a blank, then that means this function will be replacing any value that you specify. So this is exactly how it works, and this is why we use the replace function in SQL. Now let's go back in order to practice. So let's do the same example. This time we're gonna go and select from a static value. So we're gonna get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So if you go and execute it, you can see we are getting the phone number. Now let's go and remove the dashes from this value. So let's have a new line and we start with replace. The first thing that you have to specify for SQL, the value itself. So let's go and get the value. This is the first argument. The second argument gonna be the old value. So the old value gonna be the dash. And now the third argument will be the replacement. And since we want to remove it, we don't want to replace it with anything, we will have just single quotes and nothing between them. So there is no space between those single quotes. Now we can go and rename stuff, like this is the phone and this is a clean phone. Let's go and execute it. Now, as you can see in the output of the function, we don't have any dashes between the numbers. And you can go and test stuff, like for example, I can go and add a slash and execute it. You will see slashes between them. So you can go and try multiple stuff. So this is one nice use case for the replace function. Now, there is another use case for the replace function, is that sometimes in my data, file names gonna be stored. Like for example, let's say reports.txt. And now let's say that I would like to change the file format from .txt to CSV. Now how we're going to do that, we're going to go with a new line, say replace, and then the first argument going to be the value. So let's take our value from here. And now what is the old value? It's going to be the .txt, and I want to replace it with another format, with another extension. So it's going to be the CSV. So we're going to say this is the new file name, and this is the old file name. So let's go and execute it. And now as you can see, in the output, SQL did replace the txt with a CSV. This is as well where I use the replace function in my projects. So my friends, the replace function is really fun. And those are two nice use cases for the replace. Alright, so that's all about the replace function in SQL. And with that, we have covered the whole data manipulations. Now in the next group, we're going to talk about the calculations. And here we have only one function, the length. Now the length function, it's very simple. It's going to go and count how many characters you have in one value. So you are calculating the length of a value. Let's have a very simple example to understand it. Okay, so now let's say that we have the value Maria. If you apply the length function for that, what's going to happen is SQL going to go and start counting how many characters we have inside this value. So the M is 1, A 2, 3, 4, 5. In the output, you will get the number 5. So 5 is the length or the total number of characters in this value. Now let's say that you have a number like 350. If you go and apply the length function, still SQL going to go and count how many digits do we have. The 3 is 1, 5, 2, 3. So the total length for that going to be 3. So you can apply it even for numbers. And not only that, you can go and apply it on a date value. So let's say that you have the following date, 2026 1st 23. So SQL going to go and count each digit, each character, even the underscores, not only the numbers. Underscore is as well a digit, right? So the total length of this date is going to be 10. So you can apply any data type to the length function, and in the output you will get always a number. That's it. This is how you can count the number of characters in any value. Let's go back to SQL in order to practice that. Okay, so now we have the task, calculate the length of each customer's first name. So it is very simple. We're going to go and apply the function length, len, to the column first name, and we're going to call it length name. So let's go and execute it. And with that, as you can see, we are getting in the output numbers, and these numbers are the number of characters of each name of our customers. So this is how we calculate the length, and that's it for this group. Now moving on to the next one, it's going to be very interesting. Now we're going to talk about how to extract something from a string value, and here we're going to cover now two functions, the left and the right. Now the left function gonna go and extract specific number of characters from the start of a string value. So if you want to get few characters at the beginning of a value, you can use the left. But now the right function is exactly the opposite. It's gonna go and extract a specific number of characters from the end of string value. So if you want few characters from the end of your value, you can use right. Now in order to apply the left or the right function, you have to give SQL two things: the value where you want to extract a part from it, and the number of characters, how many characters you want to extract. And this is the same for the left and the right. Now let's say that we have again this value Maria, and now if the task says I would like to extract the first two characters, and since we are talking about the starting position, we're gonna use the left function, and since it says two characters, we're gonna go with the 2. So SQL gonna start counting. M is 1, A is 2, and after that it's gonna stop and make a cut, and SQL gonna go and return the two characters MA. So we are counting from the left side going to the right side, right? Now if your task says extract the last two characters, here we are talking about the end position of your value, and for that we're gonna use the right function since we are approaching from the right side, and since we want only two characters, the number of characters is gonna be 2. So this time SQL gonna start counting from the right side moving to the left side. So A is 1, I is 2, and that's it. Then SQL gonna stop and extract only those two characters, IA. So if you want to extract data at the starting position, you use the left, but if you want to extract characters from the end position of your value, then you use the right function. Now let's go back to SQL in order to practice. Okay, so now we have the following task: retrieve the first two characters of each first name. So we just need the first two characters. Since we are coming from the left side, we can go and use the function left. So it's very simple, first name, and we need only two characters, so 2. So we're gonna call it first two character. Let's go and execute it. And now you can see in the output we have two characters, MA. Now with John we have only G because we have a leading space. Well, you can leave it like this or you can transform it. And then George we have GE and so on. So with that we are getting the first two characters. Now in order to fix it for John, what we're gonna do, we're gonna say trim first and then apply the left. So with that we are getting rid of all white spaces, and then we apply the left. So with that everything looks perfect. So for John we have JO. So this is how we can get the first two characters of a column. Now let's move to the next one. The task says retrieve the last two characters of each first name. So this time we need the last two. So we are coming from the right side. So we're gonna do it like this. We're gonna say right first name and then as well 2. So last two character. Let's go and execute it. And now as you can see in the output, we have a new column where we have the last two characters from the first name. So we have here IA, ER, and for John as well working. And that's because we don't have any trailing spaces. But if you have any trailing spaces, then go and use that trim function. Alright, so that's all for the left and right. And now we're gonna go to the last function. We have the substring. So the substring gonna go and extract a part of a string at a specified position. So this time we don't want something from the beginning or the end. We want something like in the middle. So we want to specify the starting position and we want to extract few characters from there. So let's have a very simple example to understand it. Now, in order to use the substring, you need three things. The first one is the value itself, where you want to extract a specific part from it. And then you have to specify the starting position, where SQL gonna start extracting the characters that you want. And as well, SQL needs the links. How many characters we have to extract. So now let's say that we have the following task. After the second character, extract 2 characters. So from reading this, you can see we specified the starting position. This is the second character, and the length gonna be the 2 characters. So let's have this example. If we have Maria, so now we have to specify the starting position. Now we are saying after the second character. So the first character M is 1, then A is 2. After 2, we got the position number 3, right? So starting from R. So that means we have to specify for SQL 3, because the starting position gonna be number 3. This is after the 2. Now we want only 2 characters, so we want the R and the I. If you give this to SQL, Maria, starting position 3 and the length 2, SQL gonna go and extract the 2 characters, the R, I. And this is exactly what we want. We want 2 characters after the second position, the second character. So with that, we didn't extract something from the left or from the right. We extracted at specific position, and this is exactly why we need the substring. Now let's make it a little bit more difficult, where we're gonna say after the second character, extract everything, all the characters. So not only RI, I would like RIA. So now nothing's changed about the starting position. It's gonna stay at 3. But now if you are looking to this value and you want to extract everything starting from R, that means you have to specify the length of 3. But this is not really good, because let's have another value in the same column. So we have Martin. So the starting position gonna be as well R, and now the length's gonna be different. So we have here 4 characters. So now the length is not anymore 3, it is 4. But you have to specify something at the end for SQL. You can go for 4, that's fine for Maria as well. But if you have a lot of values, it's gonna be really hard to specify exactly the correct length. That's why instead of specifying a static number like 3 or 4, we can use another function. So now, my friends, if you use the length function, you will get the total number of characters, right? So for Maria, you will get 5. For Martin, you will get 6. And those numbers are okay to use in the lengths because they are more than what we need. And that's totally fine. So if you are saying, okay, for Maria, start from the 3rd position and cut for me 5 characters, SQL gonna find only 3, but you will not get an error. So you are extracting more than you need, and you will always get all the characters after the starting position. So this is a little trick that we use in order to make the links dynamic, where we cannot find one value that we can use in all scenarios. And now let's go back to SQL in order to practice the substring. Okay, so now we have the following task, and it says retrieve a list of customers' first names after removing the first character. So now don't ask me why, but for some reason we don't want to see the first character of the first names. We want to remove it. So how we can do that? We cannot use the left or the right. We have to go with the substring because it is a little bit more complicated. So substring, and let's go and get, and the first argument gonna be the value, so it comes from the first name, and then the second argument is the starting position, so where we want to start. Since it is saying I want all the characters after the first character, so that means we will be starting from the position number 2. So for example, Maria here, the first character M, position number 1, and we want to start our substring from the position number 2. So that was the easy part. Now the next one, the question is how much characters we want to leave. So do we leave here like 4 characters? Like in Maria, we have 4 characters, but in John, we have only 3. Then the next one is 4 and so on. So if you go, for example, with 4, and let's call it sub name. So we make it static. What can happen? It's gonna work for some scenarios like Maria. So we have here Aria. And for Peter, we are getting Eater. But for Martin, it's not working. We are not getting the last N because it has like 5 characters after the first one. And by just looking at the result, as you can see, we have here one issue with John, and that's because the first character is an empty string. So this is really annoying. So that's why we use the trim first, just to get rid of all those white spaces. And now you can see it's working fine. So we are not getting the J. We have everything after the first character. So now, instead of having this static, what we're gonna do, we're gonna make it variable. So we're gonna go and use the length of the first name. So with that, we make sure we have enough length to extract. And this can work for any value inside the first name, even if the name is like 20 characters. So let's go and execute. And now you can see for Martin, it is now working. So we have here like 5 characters after the M, and here we have 4 characters after the M as well, and here we have 3 characters after the G. So it is working completely, and it is full dynamic. So this is the trick by using the links together with the substring, and as you can see now we are using 3 functions in one go. We have the length, we have the trim, and we have the substring. And this is what happens in SQL. We use multiple functions together in order to solve like complex tasks. So this is how you can extract a substring from a string. Alright, so that's all about the substring, and with that we have covered a lot of very important string functions in SQL, and now you have enough tools in order to manipulate the string values in your data. Okay my friends, so with that you have learned how to manipulate your string values inside SQL using the string functions. Now we will move to the second one. You will learn how to manipulate the numbers, the numeric values. So let's go.
If you like this video and you want me to create more content like this, I'm gonna really appreciate it if you support the channel by subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting. All those stuff gonna help the channel with the YouTube algorithm, and as well my content gonna reach the others. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye.